People say religion and science can never walk together. One deals in facts, the other deals in faith. But what if I told you that a book revealed 1,400 years ago contains over 1,000 facts that modern science has only recently discovered? That's right. The Quran revealed in the 7th century still stands up to every scientific test today. Albert Einstein once said, "Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind." So here's the real question. Do the Quran and modern science conflict with each other, or are they actually compatible? And if they are compatible, how did a man living in the 7th century know any of this? The Quran is not a book of science, S-C-I-E-N-C-E. It's a book of signs, S-I-G-N-S. Out of 6,000 plus verses, over 1,000 speak about science. And he only talks about confirmed, established facts, not theories, not assumptions, because science built on theories takes U-turns. So let's go field by field. No arguments, no forcing, just evidence. Astronomy. 1. The Big Bang Theory. Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 30. Do the unbelievers not see that the heavens and the earth were joined together, and then we split them apart? That right there is the Big Bang in a nutshell. One primary nebula, then a secondary separation, galaxies formed, then solar systems, then our Earth. Scientists confirmed this in 1973. The Quran said it 1,400 years ago. 2. The universe began as smoke. Surah Fusilat, chapter 41, verse 11. Moreover, he turned to the sky when it was smoke. The Arabic word used here is dukhan, which means smoke. If you ask a scientist today, he'll tell you the celestial matter before the universe formed was in a gaseous state. But smoke, that's actually more scientifically precise than just gas, because smoke contains particles suspended in gas. That's exactly what scientists describe. 3. The shape of the Earth. People once believed the Earth was flat. They were afraid to sail too far in case they fell off the edge. It wasn't until 1577 when Sir Francis Drake sailed around the Earth that the world was proved to be spherical. But long before that, Surah Luqman, chapter 31, verse 29, it is Allah who merges the night into the day and merges the day into the night. Merging is a slow, gradual process. Night slowly becomes day slowly becomes night. This only happens on a spherical Earth. On a flat Earth, there would be a sudden switch. Surah Az-Zumar, chapter 39, verse 5. The Arabic word used is kawara, meaning to overlap or to coil, like how you coil a turban around your head. This coiling of night over day and day over night, only possible on a sphere. And then Surah Naziat, chapter 79, verse 30. And after that, we made the earth egg-shaped. The Arabic word dahaha comes from the root word duya, which refers specifically to the egg of an ostrich. Today, we know the Earth isn't a perfect sphere. It's slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the center. It's geospherical. Guess what shape an ostrich egg is? Slightly flattened at the top, bulging at the center. Geospherical. The Quran described the exact shape of the Earth 1,400 years ago. 4. The moon's light is reflected. People used to think the moon had its own light. Only recently did we discover that moonlight is simply reflected sunlight. Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse 61. The moon is described as having borrowed light. Surah Yunus, chapter 10, verse 5. The moon is described as a reflection of light. The same message is in Surah Nuh, chapter 71, verses 15 to 16. Now look at this. The Arabic word for the sun is shams. In the Quran, the sun is always described as siraj, a torch, wahaj, a blazing lamp, diya, a shining glory. The Arabic word for the moon is kamar, and the moon is always described as munir, borrowed light, nur, a reflection of light. The moon is never once called siraj or wahaj or diya, not once. That's not a coincidence. That's precision. 5. Stars consume themselves. Surah Tariq, chapter 86, verse 3. The Arabic word for star is Naj. It is described as Saqib, meaning it pierces through darkness and consumes itself. Today, we know that stars burn through nuclear fusion. They literally consume their own fuel to produce light. The Quran described that 1,400 years ago. 6. The sun rotates on its own axis. When I was in school, I was taught the sun is stationary. It doesn't rotate. The planets rotate, the earth rotates, but the sun, fixed. In 1609, Johannes Kepler wrote in his book Astronomia Nova that planets not only revolve around the sun, they also rotate on their own axes, but the sun itself rotating that came much later. Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 33. It is Allah who created the night and the day, the sun and the moon, each one traveling in orbit with its own motion. The Arabic word yasbahun comes from the root sabaha. It describes the motion of a moving body. If I say a man is doing sabaha on the ground, it doesn't mean he's rolling. It means he's walking or running, he has his own motion. If I say someone is doing sabaha in water, it doesn't mean he's floating. It means he's swimming, actively moving. So when the Quran uses yasbahun for a celestial body, it doesn't mean it's just flying through space. It means it's rotating on its own axis. Today, using equipment that projects the image of the sun on a table, scientists can observe sunspots. Those sunspots take approximately 25 days to complete one full rotation, confirming that the sun takes about 25 days to rotate once on its own axis. The Quran spoke about this 1,400 years ago. 7. The sun and moon have different orbits. Surah Yasin, chapter 36, verse 40. It is not permitted for the sun to catch up with the moon, each one traveling in an orbit with its own motion. People used to think the sun and moon shared the same orbit. The Quran says no, the orbits are different. The question of catching up doesn't even arise, and both of them rotate as well as revolve. 8. The sun is moving toward a specific destination. Surah Yasin, chapter 36, verse 38. The sun is running its course to a place determined, for a period determined. The Arabic word mustaqar means to a place determined, for a period determined. Today, science tells us that the sun, along with the entire solar system, is moving toward a specific point in the universe called the solar apex. It's moving at a speed of 12 miles per second toward a point in the constellation of Hercules. This same message is repeated in Surah Rad 13-2, Surah Fatir 35-1, Surah Luqman 31-29, Surah Az-Zumar 39-5. 9. The expanding universe. Surah Dariyat, chapter 51, verse 47. It is we who have constructed the universe with power, and it is we who are steadily expanding it. The Arabic word muziona means expanding the vastness of space. Edwin Hubble, one of the greatest scientists, discovered that the universe is expanding. Galaxies are moving away from each other. The Quran stated this 1,400 years ago. Physics. Something smaller than the atom. The Greek philosopher Democritus proposed that the atom is the smallest particle of matter. It cannot be divided. The Arabs knew this theory. The Arabic word for atom is zara. Some people thought the Quran was outdated because it mentions zara. But look at what the Quran actually says. Surah Saba, chapter 34, verse 3. In Allah's record is everything smaller and greater than the atom. The same message in Surah Yunus, chapter 10, verse 61. The Quran doesn't say the atom cannot be divided. It actually says there are things smaller than the atom. Today we know atoms are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. The Quran was already ahead. Hydrology, the water cycle. The water cycle as we know it was first described by Sir Bernard Palissy in 1580. Before that, in the 7th century BC, Thales of Miletus thought ocean spray was picked up by wind and fell as rain in the interior. People didn't understand where underground springs came from. They believed in a theory by Descartes and philosophers like Aristotle that water vapor evaporated from soil, condensed in mountain caverns, and those caverns formed the lakes that fed the springs. This was believed as late as the 17th and 19th centuries. The Quran described the complete water cycle centuries before any of this. Surah Az-Zumur 39 to 21 rain comes down from the sky, seeps into the ground, creates springs in the earth, and causes crops of various colors to grow. Surah Rum 30 to 24 Allah sends down rain and the dead earth comes back to life. Surah Muminun 23:18. We send down rain in measured amounts, we are able to store it, and we can drain it away. Surah Al-Hijr 15:22. We send fecundating winds. The Arabic word lawaki is the plural of laki, derived from lakaha, meaning to impregnate or fertilize. The winds carry pollen, impregnate the clouds, condensation happens, lightning strikes, rain falls. Surah Nur 24 to 43. We send mountain masses of clouds. Today, anyone who has flown in an airplane and looked down at the clouds below knows they look exactly like mountain masses from above. There were no airplanes 1,400 years ago. The water cycle is described in detail across multiple chapters. Surah Araf 757, Surah Rad 13:17, Surah Furqan 25 to 40, 8, 4, 9, Surah Fatir 35 to 9, Surah Yasin 36 to 34, Surah Jatiyah 45 to 5, Surah Qaf 50 to 9 to 10, Surah Waqiyah 56 to 68, 70, Surah Mulk 67 to 30. Geology. Mountains are pegs driven into the earth. Geologists tell us today that the Earth's outer crust is very thin, barely 1 to 10 miles less than 1% of the total radius of the Earth, which is 3,750 miles. That crust is thin and fragile, and it's the mountain ranges formed by a folding phenomenon that stabilize it. Mountains act like pegs, or stakes, driven into the Earth. Surah Naba, chapter 78, verses 6 and 7. Have we not made the earth as an expanse, and the mountains as stakes? The Arabic word is avdad, which means stakes or pegs. Frank Press, author of the famous textbook The Earth, referenced by universities worldwide, illustrates mountains as wedge-shaped structures deep in the earth, and states that their function is to stabilize the earth's crust. The Quran said exactly that, 1,400 years ago. The same information is in Surah Al-Anbiya 21:31, Surah Luqman 31-10, Surah Nahl 16:15. We have set on the earth mountains, standing firm, lest it should shake with you. Oceanography. The barrier between salt and fresh water. Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse 53. It is Allah who has let free two bodies of flowing water, one sweet and palatable, the other salt and bitter, and between them is a barrier which is forbidden to be trespassed. Surah Rahman, chapter 55, verses 19 and 20. He has let free the two bodies of flowing water. Meeting together between them is a barrier which neither of them transgresses. Maraj al-Bahraini yaltaqiyan, the two bodies of water meet and mix, but there's also a barrier between them. For centuries, scholars couldn't reconcile these two descriptions. How can water both meet and have a barrier? Today, science has given us the answer. There is a slanting transitional zone between the salt sea and the fresh sea called a transitional homogenizing area. When water passes from one side to the other, it loses its original characteristics and blends in. So both bodies of water do meet, but their characteristics remain distinct. Salt water stays salty. Fresh water stays fresh. You can observe this at Cape Point, South Africa, where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans meet, the River Nile flowing into the Mediterranean Sea, the Gulf Stream starting in the Gulf of Mexico, flowing for thousands of miles, both bodies of water remaining distinct throughout. If you pick up water from one side of a boat and water from the other side, they are completely different. One is fresh, one is salty. Even the temperature differs. The Strait of Gibraltar, where the Atlantic and Mediterranean have an invisible barrier between them. Professor Hay, a leading marine scientist of the USA, confirmed this phenomenon. Biology, botany, zoology. Every living thing was made from water. Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 30. We have created every living thing from water. Will you not then believe? Think about the context for a moment. This was revealed in the deserts of Arabia where water was scarce. Saying that everything came from water, who would believe that? Today we know cytoplasm, the basic substance of the living cell, is 80% water. Every living creature contains 50 to 70% water. Without water, life cannot exist. Surah Nur, chapter 24, verse 45. Every living animal was made from water. Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse 54. Man was created from water. The Quran stated all of this 1,400 years ago. Plants have genders. It's only recently that science confirmed that plants have sexes male and female. Even unisexual plants have distinct male and female characteristics. Surah Taha, chapter 20, verse 53. It is Allah who sends down water from the sky and causes diverse pairs of plants to grow each separate from the other. Plants in pairs, male and female. Surah Rad, chapter 13, verse 3. We have created every kind of fruit in pairs 2 and 2. Even fruit has gender. Animals live in communities. Surah Anam, chapter 6, verse 38. There is not a thing that moves on earth, nor a bird that flies on its wings, but they are communities like you. Today, science has confirmed that animals and birds live in organized social communities just like humans. The flight of birds. Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse 79. Do you not look at the birds held in the midst of the sky? Nothing holds them up but the power of Allah. Surah Mulk, chapter 67, verse 19. Do you not observe the birds above you? They spread their wings and fold them in. Nothing holds them but the power of Allah, and He watches over all things. Today, science has discovered that birds have migratory programming built into their nervous systems. Young birds without any prior experience can fly thousands of miles without a guide and return to the exact departure point. Professor Hamburger, in his book Power and Fragility of the Mutton Bird, gives a remarkable example. The mutton bird lives in the Pacific. It travels more than 15,000 miles, completes the journey in about 6 months, and returns to its departure point with a delay of no more than 1 week. Scientists say there has to be some kind of programming in these birds. But who programmed them? The Quran says Allah holds them up, the Arabic word amsaka, to seize, to hold. The bee and its dance. Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verses 68 and 69. And your Lord taught the bee to build its cells in hills, in trees, and in human habitations to eat of the fruits of the earth and find with skill the spacious paths of your Lord. What does it mean, find the spacious paths with skill? Carl von Frisch, a scientist, won the Nobel Prize in 1973 for describing the behavior of animals, specifically the communication method of the honeybee. Today we know when a worker bee finds a new garden or flower patch, it goes back and communicates the exact direction and map to its fellow bees. This is called the bee dance. Only through high-speed photography have we been able to understand how this communication works. Now here's something remarkable. The gender used in the Quran for the bee in these verses, kuli and fasluki, is the feminine gender. People used to think the worker bee was male. William Shakespeare, in his play Henry IV, wrote that the soldier bee, the male bee, goes and reports to the king. He was wrong on 2 counts. The worker bee is not male, it's female. And they don't report to a king, they report to a queen. The Quran used the correct feminine gender 1,400 years ago. The spider's house. Surah Ankabut, chapter 29, verse 41. Those who take protectors other than Allah are like the spider who builds itself a house, and truly the flimsiest of houses is the spider's house. Beyond the spiritual meaning, science today has confirmed something about the spider's family life that makes this verse even more striking. Female spiders frequently kill the male spider after mating. The spider's house built on fragile foundations, just like any protection sought outside of Allah. The civilization of ants. Surah Naml, chapter 27, verses 17 and 18. Solomon's army was marching, and one ant said to the others, "Get into your habitations, lest Solomon and his horses unknowingly trample you underfoot. Some people read this and think, what kind of fairy tale book is this? Ants talking to each other? But today, science has revealed something extraordinary. Of all creatures, the one with the closest resemblance to human beings in terms of social structure is the ant. Ants bury their dead the same way humans do. Have a sophisticated division of labor managers, supervisors, workers, regularly meet to communicate. Have marketplace-style systems where they exchange goods. When they store grain in winter and the grain begins to bud, they cut the bud as if they know that budding will cause the grain to rot. In monsoon, when grain gets wet, they bring it out into sunlight to dry as if they know humidity will cause root development and rotting. The Quran described the advanced social civilization of ants 1,400 years ago. Reason 1. The absorption of colors in layers. Light has 7 colors. We learned this in school. VIBGYOR, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. At 15 to 20 meters, red is absorbed. If you dive to 80 meters and you bleed, you cannot see the red color of your own blood. Red doesn't reach that depth. 30 to 50 meters, orange is absorbed. 50 to 100 meters, yellow. 100 to 200 meters, green. Beyond 200 meters, blue. Above 200 meters, violet and indigo. So the ocean gets progressively darker with each layer as each color disappears. Reason 2. The clouds and the surface waves. When sunlight hits clouds, the clouds absorb the light, creating darkness beneath. Then the light that passes through gets scattered. What reaches the surface of the ocean is reflected by the surface waves. Only the light that isn't reflected enters the ocean. So you have 2 types of layers. A superficial layer, warm and lit. A deep layer, dark and cold. These 2 layers are divided by internal waves. Now here's the fascinating part. Humans didn't know internal waves existed until 1900. We only knew of surface waves. But the Quran says waves, topped with waves, surface waves, and internal waves, then topped with clouds, the barriers above. And then when a man stretches out his hand, he can barely see it. Even the fish that live in the deep ocean cannot see unless they carry their own bioluminescent light. Submarines carry their own lights for the same reason. Professor Durgarao's conclusion. It is impossible for any human being to have written this verse. This Quran has to be a divine revelation. Fingerprints. Surah Qiyamah, chapter 75, verses 3 and 4. Does man think that we cannot reassemble his bones? Yes, indeed. We are able to restore even his fingertips in perfect order. The unbelievers said, after we're buried and our bones have disintegrated, how will Allah reassemble us? Allah's response, we won't just reassemble your bones, we can reconstruct your fingertips in perfect order. Sir Francis Galton discovered fingerprinting in 1880 and stated, no 2 fingerprints of any 2 individuals in the world are identical, not even in a million people. That's why police, CID, CIA, FBI, they all use fingerprinting to identify individuals. The Quran pointed to the uniqueness of fingertips 1,400 years ago. Pain receptors in the skin. Surah Nisa, chapter 4, verse 56. As for those who reject our signs, we shall cast them into hellfire. And as often as their skins are roasted through, we shall give them fresh skins in exchange so that they may feel the pain. Doctors used to believe only the brain was responsible for feeling pain. Recently, science discovered that there are specific receptors in the skin called pain receptors that are also responsible for pain. When a burn patient comes to a doctor today, the doctor pricks the affected area with a pin. If the patient feels pain, it's a superficial burn, pain receptors intact. If they feel nothing, it's a deep burn, pain receptors destroyed. The Quran described this phenomenon, we will give them fresh skin so they feel the pain, indicating that something in the skin is responsible for feeling pain. That something is the pain receptor. Professor Tagata Tehasin, head of the Department of Anatomy, Chiang Mai University, Thailand, one of the world's leading researchers on pain receptors, was given the translation of this verse. He said, It's impossible that the Quran could mention this. We only discovered it recently. How is this possible? He refused to believe it. Then he checked the Quran himself. He verified it. He was so deeply moved that at the 8th Saudi Medical Conference in Riyadh, in front of the entire audience, he recited the Shahada. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah, and Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of Almighty God.